to Swine TV. Today we have a great segment, Innovations in Natural Science, the Van Beek Legacy with Alex Van Beek, President of Van Beek Natural Science. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Jim.
You guys have a rich history in the agriculture space as a family business. I want to learn more about the story behind Van Beek Natural Science, starting with Ron Van Beek, your dad, and how you grew into your role within the Van Beek Natural Science Company.
Sure. Well, it actually goes, I believe it goes back a little further than that, where the desire, right? The desire for helping people and helping animals. This started years before that when my father was a little child on a family farm and, loved working with the animals. I think if you watched my grandfather, you would see where the compassion comes from and then how that developed into a passion to help family farms. There's a lot of challenges that family farms deal with. So I think that starts there intrinsically runs through our blood, right? So there's a part there that I'd like to put first. Secondly this all started with a mistake where my father tried to land a job in sales and had to ask directions at a company called Fansco. And at that time, then Abe Skibout, who owned the company, it was a mineral vitamin premix company. He asked my father why, and he said, well, I'm going to get that new sales job. And I think there was a bit of confidence he saw there, right? I'm not going to apply for it, but I'm going to get it. And that's also the approach we take with helping farms solve some issues that they're dealing with, is we will solve the problem. We just haven't identified certain things yet to help us get there. So when that started, so he ended up walking out with a job at Fansco. Abe Skibout ended up selling him. And that's perhaps the person he learned the most from in the life of sales, is working really close with him. Within about 2 to 3 years, then he positioned my father to buy out the whole company. At that time, in order to grow, you bought someone else's territory out.
Yeah.
So at that time, he bought the whole company and went from being a salesman to a company owner and dealt with new challenges and new issues. Since then, we grew into an animal health nutraceutical manufacturer because we realized and saw the importance to start moving away from synthetic compounds and move into the natural compounds. Now, what I mean by that a little bit is how in nature takes care of itself to a certain degree without human intervention. And it's presented with all kinds of challenges. So we believe that in nature, there is hidden the keys to all the problems we deal with, all the viruses, bacteria, all the issues they cause, secondary issues, whatever it may be. There is that lays there. So with that passion and that drive, that's what's caused my father to continue building the company in different directions. In 2000, I somewhat joined the company, but before that, a lot of people say, how long have you been with the company? And I say, ever since I was born, because any chance I got, I wanted to ride with my father when he went to see farms, when he went to talk with customers. I loved that aspect of it. I also am a big visual learner and also hands-on learner. So I loved that aspect of it, and to see what meant something to the farms, what meant something to the employees of the farms, and how being able to do face-to-face education was, you were developing something more than just giving information. I love that aspect of it. However, as a growing up, I never had this huge commitment that I needed to work inside the company. Uh, there were many different ideas I floated around of what I wanted to do professionally. In 2000, I think it was the end of 2000, I went to a trade show in Minnesota. It was the Minnesota Veterinary Medical Association. And I think that is the bug that bit me. I think at that point, speaking with veterinarians, speaking with vet techs, and speaking with the industry in animal health, I fell in love with it. I thought this is a great industry, great people, and that's what I loved about it. So that's where I came in to the picture, and I started in sales, started in a 7-state territory right here in the Midwest. And I put a lot of miles on, but I loved being out there in the field, speaking with producers, speaking with vet practices, speaking with distribution partners, and how we could, tie that better together. So through the years, I have started to take over more responsibilities on the sales and marketing side of things. And I think that's where we naturally gravitated towards. My father really loves the product development and the on-farm working with clients through the issues. And I enjoy the aspects of the sales and marketing and promoting the Van Beek brand, which, yeah, I'll leave it there.
So it's all about helping people and using nature as a resource to help drive that. Now, before we get to the commitment to natural products, Alex, you guys were founded in Iowa.
Yes, correct,
Okay. And that's where you still are today.
correct. Yeah.
So what sets you apart for natural products? Can you explain the commitment to your natural ingredients and the benefit they offer? So you talked about the nature thing, and then let's talk about your products and how that connects.
Yeah. I think what sets Van Beek apart is we're focused on the results. So, and I know everybody's going to say the same thing, but one of the things that Van Beek is set apart from is I'm simply focused on the results. And when you look at natural, I think of, let's say, probiotics or even enzymes. Vitamins and minerals can be natural elements as well. When I think about that, I see so many times people advertising more of. So I might be competitive in a numbers game on my packaging, but that might not give me a better result. And so we're focused on the results of, and that's what's led to our success. That's also what's led to Van Beek having a name of high integrity, high innovation, and high production.
So what about like innovation and research, Alex? So how does Van Beek and your approach to R&D hit the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really good question. I believe the approach that Van Beek takes to research and development is also what sets us apart as a natural product company. In that commitment, we realize a couple of things. One, we're taking up a project because there really is not a sustainable solution that's netting the result we believe it should be netting. And anytime I see people or I see farms dealing with an issue as this is just the way it is. It's just the way raising piglets is. It's just the way a sow farm operates. It's just the way a dairy farm operates. When I see that, that's unacceptable to us. right? We should never have that level of an acceptable loss. That always starts the project. And as we do so, we comb through every amount of research we can that's already out there, and we determine, is there a cumulative amount of data that would allow us to start to draw conclusions in the industry from third parties, from universities, or wherever it may be. If there's not, then Van Beek will take on its own initiative to study out the issue. Once that's studied out, then we look for and we study what's already been done in terms of application from a natural standpoint. If that has not been done, we set out on a mission to find that. And it's our mission to find those compounds that we can apply to this specific issue. There's a long road in there, and in that, as far as steps to the research and development, in that is we have to develop many different formulations that we then put into pilot programs, on-farm testing, etc., to understand, can we net that result? Can we get to that achievement? Eventually, we have to find out what's the best vehicle to get it to the animal, to get it to the source of impact. Once we get there, then we start to do the market research and etc., and find if there's a viable way to actually get it there, right? Or if we have to alter things to hit a certain price point to make it feasible. So there's a lot that goes in ahead of time. I would say most of our products that we release, there's probably 4 to 5 years at least of from idea to we're launching a product.
So when we talk about launching a product, Alex, is there any recent innovations or products that excite you?
Yes, yes, very much. We just launched Integravol and IntegraVix, those lines of products. And Integravol is a water-soluble product, and IntegraVix is a feed additive product. Now, water-soluble because we need to get in the water anytime you're dealing with an animal that just doesn't have an appetite,
Yeah.
right? Whether they are sick, whether they're stressed, you name it. If you're weaning animals, they're going to have a stress that they're dealing with. At that point, their consumption goes down. We need to get them back on feed as fast as possible. Energy is the limiting factor in any diet. So the faster I can get them on feed, the better it is. When I talk about so that's Integravol, and that goes into the water because you're always going to drink, right? And that also helps encourage feed intake. When I think about IntegraVix, the exciting part of IntegraVix is as we go into the stages, we have IntegraVix sow, IntegraVix nursery, and IntegraVix grower. So finisher, if I'm looking at IntegraVix sow, we have successfully proven that I can dramatically and significantly raise the antibody levels in that sow's colostrum, and we can also test total serum proteins in the piglet with a dramatic increase. So that passive immunity is coming over to the piglet. It's very exciting. There's a ton of benefit in that action right there. If I think about IntegraVix nursery, the sooner I can grow the villi in the GI tract, the more robust that GI tract becomes. So we can talk about probiotics, we can talk about microbiome, we can talk about all the good bacteria, bad bacteria, but if they don't have a place to colonize, they need surface area to colonize. that piglet is not going to realize the genetic potential it was set out to realize. And with IntegraVix Nursery, I can encourage and promote the growth of that villi from day one. IntegraVix Finisher, we come in simply to maximize at that point feed efficiency. So the more I can gain with the least amount of food intake, the better it is for the operation from a profitability standpoint and a sustainability standpoint. And these two lines, IntegraVol and IntegraVix, I believe are the way we can help an organization, we can help a farm achieve antibiotic free, not only in a wash, in a all parts equal, we will actually create a better economic outcome for the farm.
What about cutting edge technologies, Alex?
Yeah, cutting edge technologies. There's a couple of things that we look at. One, it's the individual compounds, so individual resources from that standpoint. Secondly, would be product delivery. And there are a few things, and I can't get too far into them because there's some trade secrets inside of there, but it's how the product is actually delivered. The delivery mechanism of the product into the animal. So cutting edge technologies would be Van Beek definitely has the most extensive reach in terms of compounds that we include in the products for very intended purposes. Some of those purposes you may not see on packaging, but the other is the way we produce, the way we manufacture, and some of the steps included in the manufacturing help us deliver the product unlike any other company is going to deliver it. So
when we talk about animal health, I think that's kind of the number one objective. Are there some success stories or case studies where your products have made a significant impact?
yeah, I would say there's two that immediately jump to mind when you ask that question. That's an interesting question, but there's two of them that immediately jump to mind, and I will keep names out of it, but we were asked to help in certain areas where after weaning, there was an experience of 40 to 70% death loss. And, the piglets just weren't drinking. They were lethargic. It's really twofold. One, definitely an economic deficit. But what was most interesting is the emotional deficit. When you talked to the barn managers, there was definitely a visible emotional deficit. They have to wake up every morning knowing they're going to be pulling deads. And when Van Beek took on that challenge, within the first application, we already reduced death loss down to single-digit percentages. Now, I'm simply saying by them coming in the barn, wanting to drink, showing activity, showing some kind of will to live, you could say, encourage them to drink water immediately, which also built their appetite. And we saw an feed intake as well. We had some very successful runs working through that issue with them. Eventually, like I spoke earlier, we were able to get into the sow unit, and that's where we've seen the most fundamental change. And anytime you're dealing with piglets that are stressed, troubled, dealing with issues, if we can work with the sow unit, with the source of those piglets, then that's the most successful, because we're getting ahead of wherever that issue is presenting itself. So that was amazing. That was an eye-opening experience to be able to go from, 40 to 70%. And I know that's extreme, but I know producers that are dealing with double-digit death loss, and that's an acceptable loss. That's a normal thing. That's one. The other is, and I'm going to jump to, actually, we utilize this branding in the dairy side as well. I'll jump to that side, and the importance of day one. That calf hits the ground, or that piglet is born, the importance of day one. That colostrum is so critical. And if we're in the Integravix in the sow, or like we're in the Integravix in the dairy cow, if I can increase the IgG levels, which I know we can and have proven to be able to do, to that degree, that animal is getting that on day one. That's the most important. And when we realize that investing on day one is the most important, then we can start to make a monumental shift in the outcome. But that day one is so important. Day two is next. Day three is next, etc., as we grow them. On the dairy farm that I'm alluding to, those calves were coming, those animals were coming into the heifers were coming into the milking herd about 2 to 3 months early,
Yeah.
simply from the start. When I see that in the Integravix nursery, we have had customers that have posted piglets where they say, I can visually see the villi height difference. That's massive. You talk about, even without Integravix finisher, you talk about feed conversion. That animal's going to have a way better feed conversion than without. So
I think that's great. Day one is most important, and then every day to follow is the next most important, but you have to start at the beginning.
yes.
Now, what's
And the
ahead?
beginning, sorry, the
No.
beginning actually starts with it starts with the sow, right? That's the beginning.
And
So
do you find people like, is that a philosophy that you're trying to get people to buy into? Are they not focused on day one?
yeah, I think that's a good question. That's a really good question. I wouldn't say people don't see the importance to day one, to the benefits of colostrum, etc. But I see supplements, colostrum supplements being used. And I also see practices that I'm not sure people understand why they're doing it, right? And I think that's the unique part that Van Beek brings to the picture also, is the educational piece to it. So when we go on farm and we sit down with them, we encourage everybody that's going to be utilizing or seeing the results of the product, or in that process flow, have them involved. Because understanding why, knowing you have to do it is one thing, but understanding why it's being done and what that nets, what that gains, then you get the buy-in behind it. So I think then day one becomes more important, right?
So what's next for Van Beek Natural Science, Alex? Future goals, vision, and how do you see evolution in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's next for Van Beek Natural Science? Well, I'd love to say I can see all things clearly, but that's impossible. There's always a challenge waiting around the corner. What's next for Van Beek Natural Science would be to continue pushing forward with this kind of innovation where most companies just are not looking. It's a place most companies are not seeing. And I think a lot of people wait for regulation to happen before they make a change. And so what's next for Van Beek Natural Science would probably be on the educational side, right? We've developed some incredible technologies. We have a couple of brands that I believe will help hog producers over the next decade switch from traditional to or conventional to ABF. A lot of companies you're seeing, they're developing, maybe they still might be commercial, but they're developing brands that they're starting to experiment and break into the ABF world with different brands that they're marketing in different outlets. Van Beek Natural Science, its future will be in the education of people in the industry on what's possible and then how to get there in a repetitive and sustainable way.
It's a great conversation. Alex Van Beek, Vice President of Van Beek Natural Science.
Appreciate it, Jim. Thank you.